Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Clio Talk. My name is Matt,
And I'm RC.
and we have an RC ranch saved for today. Don't worry, I have heard it for the past 30 minutes before we're starting recording. But,
I don't know how much gas it has for the whole episode, so we got to start with something else.
yeah. So, how are you doing?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I'm doing good.
Good. I have been having car troubles again.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, which is awesome. It turns out cars are expensive, so I will continue to live in my e-bike dreams.
You don't feel privileged for having the mobility and access to go wherever you want?
Well, I mean, I don't really go too many places.
Oh.
And
So you don't have the mobility and access to go wherever you want because you have a job, and now all of a sudden you have to pay a lot of money because of something that you have to get to work?
yeah.
Huh. Funny. That's weird.
Yeah, and potentially their repair is going to cost more than the actual value of my vehicle.
That's excellent.
Yeah. But don't worry. They're basically no longer doing car loans anymore. So unless you have a lot of money down or willing to sign up to a lease. So, if I want to buy a brand new vehicle, it's going to be a lease or a massive interest rate if I even get a car loan. And used markets, although stabilizing, are still rough. But to our urbanist friends that listen to this who ride e-bikes, I think I might join you.
Good.
Except I would, knowing exactly where I live, I can imagine that one of the many SUVs would immediately run me over as soon as I go to leave for work in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
you really do live in the fuck you, I got mine society.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. You can keep saying I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I mean, like, I'm just thinking about just the problem of living, like, right by a highway exit. And if I even attempted to ride a bike to a grocery store, which means riding in front of the highway exit where people, like, are supposed to, exit and go onto a 35-mile-an-hour street, they don't. They end up entering the street at about 55 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And how I would die, even wearing a bike helmet, wouldn't do much if they somehow didn't see me and they'd basically get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's legal to kill pedestrians if you're in a vehicle.
Yeah.
In fact, they won't even say the driver killed you. It'll just be a car hit you, right? Because the car just kind of did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I'm an avid walker. And my walk route is purposely curated to avoid a lot of major traffic, just because, like, it would be easier for me to walk to the actual walking path that exists, but I would need to then cross a major street in which the crosswalk does not give me enough time to cross. And I know people will not be paying attention. And light will, because I've attempted to cross the street before. Even I walk pretty fast, but the light will turn green while I'm still technically in the street.
If you talk about the intersection I'm thinking of, it's like a three lane, right?
Yeah.
So it's a pretty long ways to walk.
Yeah.
If you're not running, which you shouldn't have to run across the street. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so I basically curated my walking route to avoid crossing the major streets I live around, and also to avoid dealing with the highway exit. The issue is there is a certain company that transports like laboratory samples and materials that gives their employees company cars, who I've almost been hit by one of their company's cars in the one stop sign street crossing I have to go across.
I will say the light you're talking about, I have seen a pedestrian or bicyclist or one of them dead in that intersection before. I've seen someone who hit them while crossing before. I think they were turning left and they just like ran into the pedestrian. So I have seen that in that intersection. So you're right to feel afraid of it.
Yeah, and that is the intersection where I, have to get to work, and that's where I'd have to cross. That's where I have to cross if I didn't curate my walk route to avoid that intersection.
Yes.
And for context, just imagine that it is like a 6-lane strode that immediately like turns into a massive highway exit entrance.
Mm-hmm.
And that is literally right next to where I live.
You know, if you ever want a fun experience in looking at transit, like traffic infrastructure here, there's some Johnson County intersections that are pretty interestingly designed. Like if you, the viewer, are sitting at home and you want to participate, one example of one that was redesigned recently is like if you look at like 35 and like 119th Street in Johnson County, Kansas, it's like you have to cross into the wrong way to get onto the highway. Like it's just the most insane traffic engineering just to not have to actually build anything better than a road or a highway.
Yeah.
If you look at again in Olathe, what is it, Old 56 Highway and K10? Or what's that road?
I think it's called Lone Elm or Parker or something like that.
Yeah, that one. It's like in like I think the southwestern part of Olathe. It's just an insane intersection. It's crazy. Because again, it's one of those you have to cross over to like turn right, but then also like there's a protected left turn lane. It doesn't make any fucking sense, and it's like I'm sure somebody won an award for it. You know, it's just something I would build in city skylines. It's wild.
Yeah, it's just that I'm in extreme transport doomer mode because like I feel like things are going very well for the Kansas City area. There's been some pretty big successes amongst people who are like-minded, like us, who talk on this podcast. But also there's a lot to have to overcome. And right now the feasibility of me completely abandoning my car for an e-bike. An e-bike would be a fun thing to have, and I would use it. But at that point, I own a multi-$1,000 basically toy.
And like theft machine.
Theft machine, yes.
And this is just kind of something I've been feeling for a while because, you know, we did the Anti-Doomer podcast. We're not doomers here.
Oh, yeah. We're positive things are going to look forward. We will eventually destroy the highway entrance exit that's right by my place. It
is an interesting phenomena that I don't feel like people get the criticism for being hypocrites that they should when they push this, where it takes you one city council session and one angry person to remove a brand new bike lane and like tear it up, right?
Yeah.
But then if you want to install a bike lane, it takes you 15 council sessions, a signed petition with 3,000 people verified to be like actual people. You know, you got to do an environmental review. You got to do like 3 different ADA compliance surveys. You have to have like a 4-year, like, you know, public comment session.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it seems like the hurdles to get anything done are put insanely high almost on purpose. Because it's like, even I see this in California too, even just like the public comment session, like public comment, public input.
God forbid we let anything actually happen.
Yes.
People are, why are you so afraid of change?
Like we never have 15 public comment sections for removing the road, like the bicycle lane, right? I think we talked about this in an earlier podcast, but I am referencing something specifically. All it takes is one person complaining at a random city hall meeting, and you just immediately tear it up. But then the amount of loops you have to go through to get something done, and it's like it's all just artificial because it's like, okay, look, tearing up something should take the same environmental review, all that shit, but it just doesn't. Like the 69 Express project that's happening over in Johnson County.
Yeah,
I'm sure it went through some stuff, but I didn't see public billboards for public comment sections, and it seems to have been approved 2 years ago and immediately being getting done in like a month, whereas like the streetcar, it's been under review for like the east-west expansion for like 2 years, and it's just insane because it's like, how come? And I know why. I know it's like designed this way because people want to drive or whatever, like we live in a very car-centric city, but it's like, it's just insane just how blatant the hoops are that you have to jump through for doing anything like the streetcar or buses or whatever versus a road where it's like, okay, like where's the ADA compliance survey for that? Where's the 15 different like public session meeting? Where's the online forum where you can leave comments? Like it's like there's so many avenues that are clearly designed to have negativity towards the project when it comes to like the streetcar versus the highway where it's like you don't hear about it until they're already breaking ground. And it's just like, where was the commenting on this? Like where is that? And that's what I see with that, where it's just like, it's not impossible. It's just that we have to, public comments are good, but we need to kind of not have as many as we do, because they only really serve, it's kind of one of those like democracy at the expense of all else, right? Like we're going to have so much democracy that absolutely nothing gets done. We're going to have the vote on whether we should have a vote on whether we should have a vote. And it's like, that's just not how you do it. Just have the vote, you know? Like you can still have the public comment section, but you don't need 6 of them, you know? You can get the work done with 1. And it's only, you know, urbanist projects, those types of projects, even like I think like some civil rights projects that have this kind of issue. And, you know, it's like you kind of wonder why at a certain point. It's almost like it's kind of designed that way to be as inaccessible and affordable and impossible as possible.
But in the anti-doomer action, to stick with our word and not be hypocrites, there are organizations and there are people pushing for things that would absolutely benefit Kansas City and improve it for the better, and actually change something for the better that is, you know, was never designed to be what it is. You know, you got to keep your eye out for people who are being positive and creating solutions. We are also trying to find solutions. It's just sometimes we get a bit sad. And it's okay to be sad.
And don't take that little rant as like a negativity, nothing ever gets done, it's impossible. Take it as no, this is just something that we can improve on, right? Like we just need to streamline that process. So just get involved, talk to people, you know, form community, form organizations.
Yeah.
Just that's just something where it's like you can change that, because again, the highways don't have to do that. So clearly it's not something that's 100% required. Just get that done. And whenever you're advocating for like a new light rail project or something and they're going for all that stuff, just be like, okay, well, next time we do a new highway expansion, next time we're going to expand I-70 to 3 lanes, the entire like width of the state of Missouri. Maybe where's the environmental survey? Don't we need 14 different public comment sections? Because that seems to just be happening. That's what I'm saying. Just that's action. That's the anti-doomer action part of it. Just be active.
Yeah. Completely off topic. Well, not off topic. We're talking about drivers, kind of.
It's our podcast.
Yeah.
Everything's on topic.
Yeah. So, state of Missouri has passed a using a cell phone while driving law, like many states where it's illegal to text and drive. But I think it is still kind of legal to text and drive in Missouri, because the law says you cannot support your phone with any part of your body.
Yes. I think this is one of the first Uber, like existence of Uber anti-texting laws, where they recognize, okay, if you have your phone as a GPS, or if you're like using Uber, you do need to touch your phone every once in a while. But you can't support it with any part of your body, so it has to be like mounted to your windshield.
Yes, but you are still allowed to change your song on your phone, or like touch the like GPS app. It just has to be supported by the car. It can't be in your lap or in your hand or on your foot or in your elbow or like on your head.
Which it begs the question for me. I haven't read the bill and how it's worded. Can it be in your pocket?
Oh man,
because that's technically supported by your body.
Man, imagine catching an extra $150 fine on top of your like speeding ticket because was that a phone in your pocket?
Uh-oh, distracted driving. Got your phone supported by your body. I don't think they would ever do that. The cops, I mean, but I can see them like using it selectively.
Well, also they can use it selectively to fuck you over.
Yeah, just as a fuck you. He had his phone out. Proof it was in his pocket, supported by his body.
But also, according to the law, it's a secondary offense, so you can't be pulled over for directly just using your phone. So if you're going exactly the speed limit, but you have your phone in both hands not on the steering wheel, texting, does that mean they can't pull you over because it's a secondary offense? If you're doing everything perfectly except for paying attention?
I think so. And I think the other issue they have is they have to be able to prove in theory that you actually did have your like if they pull you over and then like come over to your car, but by that point you've like say put your phone in your center console like I do. You know, I don't text and drive, but I just keep mine in my center console plugged in. My question is, they can obviously put the charge on. They can put whatever charge on. They can charge you for whatever they want. But once you go to court, it's like, how do you prove that I was actually on my phone? Like, unless you have.
I think it's just
body
a word versus word, unless they have body camera. But also, like, every traffic citation I've ever dealt with, which is not a lot because I'm not like racking up traffic tickets, but like the cops usually don't show up to it.
Yeah, of course not.
Like,
they're too busy getting overtime parked in the Denny's parking lot.
I once got a not a speeding ticket. It was a parking ticket, like basically waived because I wore a suit to traffic court. So, you know.
What was it? We had a friend who had like 15 parking tickets.
Oh yeah,
Did you ever pay those?
No, because it wasn't. It may or may not have been his name on that license plate that they were charging it all to. It's, you know, whatever. Those are currently unpaid because it may or may not have been his name, and he may or may not have actually settled that in any sort of situation, or may or may not have just continued going on with life, making it someone else's problem. Who knows?
It says if you just get someone else's like license plate, if you just like swap plates with someone, that you get free parking for life with that.
Yeah. Or if you simply borrow a family member who's on his deathbed's vehicle for a while, and then you then ruin that vehicle, then a family member then dies.
Yeah, that's a smart plan.
Yeah.
It's ethical.
It
what
is.
We call ethical parking solutions.
Ethical parking solutions.
That's my new LLC. I'm going to make a company that.
Nice.
Ethical parking solutions. A family company. Okay.
All right.
Should we?
Yeah, we should probably get
transition into.
Well, no, it's still involving cars.
Yeah, we're still in cars.
We're gonna talk about highway funding. Do you guys like highway funding?
Okay, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole. If there's any like statistics people listening, leave a comment if I get this horrifically wrong. But I am just reading numbers.
Yeah.
I am just reading numbers.
Funny you mention that because the person who did get all those parking may or may not have gotten all those parking tickets is a big statistics person.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, leave a comment, send an angry email if I'm completely wrong, and we'll read it or we'll ignore it. One of the two. We ignore a lot of them. Okay, Highway Trust Fund. It's how we fund highways in the United States. It's got right now about 95 to $100 billion in it, and it accrues interest because it is, in fact, a trust. So it's basically a big bank account of money that we keep all the highway money in, and then you could pull out like 69 Express. It's getting about like $400 million from the feds because it's like 80-20 highway split. So they get to pull 80% of it from the Highway Trust Fund and 20% of it from local funding. So, you know, it's pretty cheap to build new highways.
Yeah.
Alongside that, there is the Mass Transit Trust, which was established in 1964.
Works the exact same with the gas tax.
Yep. It takes from the same gas tax fund, but puts a little bit of it to the Mass Transit Fund, which, you know, it takes a little bit of it. So, proportionately, it's $30 billion. It also accrues interest. It is also a trust. And so the Highway Fund, the Highway Trust, gets 80-20 split. The Mass Transit Trust gets 52-48 split. 52 is for the community, 48 is the federal. So you can already see how highway funding in the United States is incentivized towards you building highways over mass transit, because if you build a highway, if you're looking at like, say, 69 highway, you're looking at, you know, trying to reduce congestion, and you're looking at either light rail or just building a toll road. Well, the feds will pay for 80% of that new toll road, but they'll only pay for 48% of the light rail project. So you can kind of see how we get into the issue of just constantly expanding the highways, because there's also $100 billion that, you know, the gas tax alone already pays for most of it. So we barely ever have to pull anything out of it. So we're getting about $200 million in interest per month on that thing. So we got a pretty good rainy day fund, actually. If we ever like hit another 2008 crash, we can just kind of withdraw some money from this thing. But for reference, the annual operating budget of the MTA in New York, like the largest mass transit organization in the United States, is $19 billion. And I think the total construction cost of that thing is, don't quote me on this, I don't know this number, probably close to like $20 billion to build. probably.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it would be adjusted for inflation
Yeah,
because,
that's
like, you know, you can't pay some dude straight out the boat like 4 cents and like an extra like jug of beer to dig a tunnel that he dies in.
But I do know that like the subway in St. Louis cost about $1 billion, 1.5 ish in 1990s money. The MARTA in Atlanta cost about like 4 ish. And this was all, of course, with the 1960s. It was closer to a 70-30 split, or if not a 90-10 split for this. So they weren't paying the 52-48 we have right now with the revision that happened in 1995. They were getting the really good Great Society rate.
And that's the majority being paid by the city.
Yeah, majority being paid by the government. They had it swapped the other way in the
No, but now the majority is paid by the city.
Currently it's 52-40, 52 being the city, 48 being the federal government. It used to be both, it kind of swapped around, but it used to be a 90-10 split, federal being 90, city being 10. It kind of got mixed around because there was the 1964 Federal Transit Bill. There was another one in the 1972 one that just revised the Federal Aid Highway Act. It got revised again in the 80s under Reagan to basically like remove the whole thing. It was just, there's a lot of bouncing around. But effectively, way back when, we built a lot more for around what we have right now, and the feds paid for a lot more of it. But right now, it's just completely highway. And nobody ever seems to really kind of be focused on changing that split. Like we had the big Infrastructure and Jobs Act, didn't really touch this at all.
Yeah.
The Inflation Reduction Act. It seems like the easiest thing to do because it wouldn't be raising any new taxes. It would just be allowing communities to get more of it paid for in this bank account we already have filled. Like we've already got $30 billion in here that just sits here. Because if you look at the chart which is available, it's just a straight line. Because they pay so little into it, they pay so little out of it, and so much gets paid into it that it's pretty much an even split. So we could afford to take more out of it. Because you can see with the highway trust funding that it goes down because they pay for most of the highway construction, so it actually gets used. The mass transit account doesn't really get used.
I mean, ideally, it would be nice to adjust the split between states and the federal government for the highway, and then increase the amount of split that the federal government will take on their behalf for cities to build transit systems, and also allow areas to dip into the highway number as well.
Yeah, because this is, and that's the big thing that the Federal Aid Highway Act change did. The pure 80-10 split in 1972 was that allowed you to use highway trust fund
80-10?
money. Or 80-20, yeah.
80-20.
Because that one was the 1972 one, which was just an amendment to the Highway Act, and it allowed you to use highway funds. Effectively, if you wanted to take the same amount out of the highway funding that you were the mass transit account, you could get that 80-20 split for your rail project. So you could basically double dip for your project. You can get the, like, whatever it was for the mass transit and whatever it was for the highway, both applied to the same project. So you could pull from both. So if you're in New York wanting to expand a subway system, you can basically get money from the highway fund and from the mass transit fund to pay for the same project, basically for free. So that's where you get like a lot of the Washington Metro project, a lot of the, MARTA, basically just a lot of those big Great Society highways were just because we revised a lot of the legislature to allow you to just use the money we already have, right?
Yes.
Okay, now that being said, I was kind of looking into the numbers just to kind of see. I don't think we should reduce anyone's mass transit funding, right? I'm in favor of increasing
that. We're prefacing it where we're not in favor of reducing any of it.
I think all the numbers are good. I just want them to be higher, right? So when I'm like maybe complaining about one specific region or two specific regions, this isn't in favor of me reducing the amount of money they get. This is just me saying that other areas should get similar amounts of money, right? Because I want the whole pile to go up, not just tear one down in favor of the others. Okay, so basically it's paid for by fuel tax, right?
Yes.
So you get fuel tax from people buying fuel,
yes.
Right? It's just a flat cent tax.
A state X amount of people buy the gasoline in their state. Mm-hmm. That tax is going to the federal government, which is going into these two trusts. And
states usually have their own gas tax. The federal government has their own. I don't know what it is currently. At one point it was 3 cents. At one point it got raised to 9 cents. I don't know what it is right now. That's not important. What is important is it doesn't matter what the price of gas is. It's just a flat tax, right,
Yeah.
on just the gallon of gas. So you buy 1 gallon, you pay however much cents to it. So currently, for example, like Kansas, if you look at their highway motor fuel use, so this is just like federal highways that we pay for with the Highway Act. It's not like street roads. Kansas burns about 1.6 million gallons of gas annually. Like Missouri, for instance, the 2 states that we kind of live in the area of, is about 3.97, so 4 million. So that's between the two of them, about 4 million gallons and 1.6, so about 5.6 million. And then for my example here, New York does about 6.5 million gallons. So New York, the entire state of New York, not New York City, is comparable to both Kansas and Missouri, which happen to be where Kansas City lies, right?
Yes.
For reference, New York is about 6 million because they have the subway. They got a really good mass transit infrastructures. So similarly,
Also, when you shove the majority of your population into just one area and then leave your upstate basically deprived, shout out to upstate people.
yeah,
You're cool.
yeah. I
Buffalo.
drove through you guys pretty recently. You guys are pretty cool.
Yeah.
But like Texas, right? They do 13 million, so they
Yeah.
do twice as much gas usage as Kansas and Missouri combined, and almost 3 times as much as New York. No,
What?
I'm looking at New Jersey. New Jersey's at 4 million. That was going to be my next example. So New Jersey's a similarly low amount per capita because they also get the benefit of the MTA for the most part, and they're also a very small state, so they don't have to drive as much. Then New York is still like about 6 million. Then California is 17 million because they have transit, but they also do a lot of driving. So in total, the United States has about 162 million gallons of gas burned annually. So all of that would be taxed about 9 cents per gallon.
Yeah.
So 162 million gallons. That being said, I was doing some numbers because you can also look at how much they get funded. Like
For the transit.
Yes, this is for the mass transit account. This is not
Yes.
for the highway account. This is just for the mass transit pool of money they get, I believe, annually. So, like, this is by metro area. So, like, for example, Des Moines pulls out about $10 million, right? It's like a reasonable amount for their population. Kansas City gets about $27 million, which, you have literally nothing to base this off of right now because I'm just telling you numbers and you don't have any frame of reference for what these numbers mean. Los Angeles gets $600 million rather, right? So they're the second largest.
630.
Yeah, 630 million. They're the second largest city in the country.
Yeah.
The whole entire Los Angeles metro area. They also don't have the largest public transit infrastructure. This isn't for highways, so this is just for public transit. They have a couple subways, but, so 600 million. Chicago, which I believe has one of the largest outside of New York, they get, if I can find
It's in
them.
alphabetical
I
order.
know it's in alphabetical order. But
It's between Chattanooga and
they
Cincinnati.
get 700 million. So they got the third largest city. They got a lot of people. They get more than Los Angeles because they have a larger public transit network. But they're similar to, whatever, the third largest. New York is the largest both in population and in public transit. Chicago's 700.
Chicago's still the third city.
Yeah, they're the third. They're the third city.
Some city in like the Phoenix metro area hasn't come up and claimed it yet.
Not yet. Dallas hasn't quite come here yet. Yeah. I know Dallas isn't in the Phoenix metro area.
Yeah, but like those cities that are just absolutely booming in population.
Yeah. Speaking of Phoenix, actually, it's getting 100 million. They're doing pretty good for themselves.
Yeah.
And for reference, I know a lot of like urbanist people, Philadelphia, they get about 454 million, so they're like doing pretty decently. Yeah. But the big prize, New York, $2.797 billion.
$2.8 billion round up.
$2.8 billion. So that's like the next two combined plus some.
Yeah, if you added Los Angeles and Chicago together.
And Philadelphia.
And
together.
Philadelphia.
I mean, we can keep going. I mean, that's...
But, the thought I was having when you were originally showing me this...
Because we did talk about this before.
We did talk about it before.
Kind of did a sanity check because I wasn't sure if I was just going insane.
I was thinking that, that makes sense for them to get $2.8 billion because
they have the largest
transit system in the country. But the point you made, and this is just me getting an opportunity to talk while you do your rant.
Yes, I need a breather.
That there is a factor that includes cost per person. Mm-hmm. So how much it would if we just got rid of the gas tax and said, hey, in order for the metro area to have this funding, each of you have to pay this amount of money into it, or how much money you get for it. So, I think the math you did, the average for these things is each person is getting about $30 to $50 worth of funding per person.
Ish, yeah. This is basically the number of money they're getting divided by the amount of people in the metro area, roughly. I didn't do it exactly, but roughly. But the average, like you said, about 30 to 50.
Yeah.
The outlier is like Atlanta's getting 80,
yes.
right? They're getting currently, I know it's alphabetical. I'm just struggling. They get $200 million, just about rounding up. And they've got, I believe, about 7 million people in their metro area, so that comes out to be about 80 million.
Yeah.
Or $80.
$80.
I keep messing this up. 80. Not 80 million.
$80 per person.
Yeah. Kansas City.
Yeah.
$14
per person.
St. Louis.
Yeah.
Similarly sized city. They're getting, in total, it's still alphabetical. I'm still scrolling. I'm like dyslexic or something. They get $80 million.
Mm-hmm.
They have about 2.8 million people living in the metro area. They come out to be about 28 per person.
So just below this $30 to $50 we put. But the point I want to get back to is you mentioned Kansas City's being at $14.
Yes, it is very low.
So if we're seeing an average across this, we just did a spot check. We checked, I think, about 15 different municipal areas from this area, from this Excel spreadsheet, which got off a federal site. You can find it yourself. We'll probably put a link to it, maybe not. 30 to 50, just doing the spot check of 15 different
I believe
metro areas.
Los Angeles was about 45.
Yeah.
I believe San Francisco was about 42-ish.
Yeah.
I believe, what was the other similarly sized city to Kansas City I looked up? It was...
Well, we looked at Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon, yeah. They got about 2.7, 2.8 million people. They're getting about 100 million, and they're at about, what was it? 33 or something?
They are...
Here, I can do the math. Unfortunately, we didn't write down these numbers because, why would that...
We did it right before the podcast.
Yeah, we figured we'd remember, and we do.
The population is going to be 2.51 according to just a quick Google.
Okay, so they're at 42.
42
per person.
Yeah.
So it's that's about within our average of what cities
should be getting.
Should be getting, yeah. 80 is the biggest outlier we've talked about, but 42, Los Angeles getting 42. They're doing a lot of development. It's good. They've got their big high speed rail project. I'm not opposed to cities getting more. I think everyone should get more. I think everyone should be getting at least 50%, 50 per person. They should get the most they possibly can, because I want the mass transit account to be used.
The baseline should be 50, so Los Angeles can bump from that 42 up to 50.
Yeah, they should be getting even more
or Kansas City could go from its $14 to 50.
Yeah, because again, we're getting a lot less than we should be, and I think this is one of those, we need to figure out a way to ask for more.
Yeah, because when we look back at the Kansas and Missouri gas tax, granted that's including the entire state.
Yeah,
if the entire state is paying more into the gas tax than New York, who is getting how much again? We haven't actually even said that yet.
Yeah, but that was kind of the big stinger. So New York, with their $2.9 billion, they have about 19 million people-ish in their metro area. They are getting, drum roll, $141 per person. So they're getting, like we said, that 2.9 is as much as like Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Chicago combined, plus some. Plus you could probably throw in Washington, D.C. for good measure at 500 million. Yeah, they're getting 141, so almost twice as much as Atlanta, almost 3 times as much as Los Angeles. It's just like, and that brings us back to what you were just talking about. So the entire state of New York is about equal to the entire states of Kansas and Missouri combined in terms of highway gallons of gas used.
For the tax dollars going into this trust.
Yes, because it's a flat, whatever cent it is currently tax going into this trust fund. New York is pulling out more per capita. They're pulling out 141 per person, but they're paying about the same amount into it.
So why would the people living in the Kansas City metro area only get 14?
Yes, we pay about the same amount as the entire state of New York does, but we get a lot less out of it.
Now, once again, we're not saying cut New York. We're just saying that we think it's a bit unfair that Kansas City is only getting 14.
Yeah, because it's basically the cities that already have public transit infrastructure take more out of the mass transit account, obviously because they have more transit infrastructure to upkeep and upgrade, but they also pay less in because they have the transit infrastructure, so they have less driving to do. Because as far as I'm aware, there's, the MTA obviously generates its own revenue, but they also are taking money from the federal government that we pay into. So what we're saying is just, it's kind of set up to where it's almost the inverse of like normally how this works. The smaller states that don't have public transit, that have to drive more, end up subsidizing the larger states that do have public transit and don't have to drive. It's
basically it's almost impossible to actually be able to build it then, because the split is so heavily, is majority favored to the city. Mm-hmm. And if you're a city like Kansas City, it costs way more. Whereas if you're in Atlanta, you already got yours, which gets back to the beginning point, the point you made, which is a lot of this entire way it's set up is kind of a fuck you, I got mine.
Yeah, it's set up to where, you got your public transit infrastructure built in like the Great Society, the 70s, whatever, even St. Louis, the 90s. You got yours built when the getting was good, when you could pull more out of this fund that everybody pays into by driving. You got your system built, and then you get less people driving, so you then have to pay less into it. But then the states that still have to drive a lot get less out of it because they don't have systems built. They can't automatically draw more out of it. And the way it's set up, they're incentivized to build more roads, to keep driving, to keep pushing car-centric infrastructure. So that's what we're saying, is it's completely backwards from how it really should be. And I think our proposal mostly, or at least my proposal, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is maybe we need to have some form of federal tax, like 1 penny per fare, right? Like MTA, if you got, your $2 fare, if 1 penny of that went into this mass transit account, that would help even out the amount they're actually putting into the federal funding. Because right now, we're basically subsidizing New York, Chicago, all those places.
But
we're paying a lot more.
But I can see the New York Post headline now being like, New Yorkers forced to subsidize corn-fed morons.
Yeah, but right now, we're forced to subsidize what do they eat in New York? Like hot dogs? Is that Chicago?
Chicago is a big hot dog city. New York's also a big hot dog city, but Chicago gets claim on hot dogs. New York gets the pizza claim, though.
Yeah. Well, we have Pizza Hut, so I don't want to give that all the way up. Anyways, regardless,
what?
We got Pizza Hut. We went to Pizza Hut. That's from Wichita, Kansas.
All right.
The thesis of this episode, because we have one for once, is effectively we don't need to cut public transit funding. We just need to find another source of revenue for this, or just let us take more out of it. We got $35 billion. It's not going anywhere. And you can see the chart. We'll have it linked in the description. We'll have all these numbers linked in the description. And it's as straight as a ruler. It's not going down. We're not allowed to take more out.
$14 per person is a ridiculous amount when we're looking at it. Granted, a spot check average of $30 to $50 per person per metro area. Yeah. That's a bit ridiculous.
So effectively, our argument is just let cities take more out of it. Just readjust it from 52 city to 48, federal, to just incentivize people to build more transit. Because this is the way it is right now. Of course they're going to build highways. Of course the 69 Express project's going to get done. Of course the I-70 project's going to get done because it's basically free. Why wouldn't you do it? I mean, the cities just don't have to think the same way they do for public transit because it's always the question of who's going to pay for it for public transit. Who's going to pay for it for highways? The federal government is. Of course they are. They're going to pay for 80% of it. You don't even have to worry about it. It's barely going to be a rounding error compared to whatever you're doing. So let's just get that for public transit. We're already paying the money into it.
All right, there we go. We have a thesis.
Yeah, that's the episode.
All right.
What did we learn? We learned just write your congressman, I guess. That'll change things.
Post about never mind, I'm not going to make that joke. I do not want to end up on an
Email this episode to AOC.
Yes.
She'll post it.
All right.
Also, John Elway's overrated. I'm doing it right there.
You're getting
Broncos
the John
fans at
Elway. I could beat the yellow M&M to death with my bare hands.
Yes.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
All right.
This was an episode. Thank you guys for listening. You do the outro.
Yeah. This has been another episode of Clio Talk. I've been Matt.
I have, in fact, been RC.
You can follow us on Twitter at Clio History. You can email us at cliohistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can leave a like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you leave a review as well, that helps us with the algorithm and whatnot. This has been another great episode. Hopefully we have an episode that's more interesting, like another Casey Mob Stories, instead of us ranting about highway federal tax dollars that we get from gas tax. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.